Okay, we'll open our meeting. Thank you all for coming. Meeting's called to order with their approval of minutes, unless you do the minutes.
I only have one, just some spelling. That's all.
Your name?
Yeah.
Again?
It's okay.
I promise you I will learn your name.
I have the time I've considered changing it because it always throws everybody for a loop, so I'm not upset about it. Yeah.
Is that the only?
That is it. That's the only.
Is
I
here.
was doing good for 2 meetings.
Hey, I went to high school for 4, I was in high school for 4 years and I got an award my senior year and they spelled my name wrong.
My apologies.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes with the correction of Michael's name to AEM instead?
Motion.
Right, second. Right. That's passed, moving on. Old business, Arbor Day celebration.
Okay, so as everybody knows, as we voted on the meeting, December 5th, at 10 a.m. will be the Arbor Day celebration at Cuthbert Park, where we'll be planting the Coral Bark Japanese maple on the opposite side of Bloodgood. If there was, this is the time now too, we're obviously, we only invite. We would love for Ptac to be there. Obviously, we know at 10 o'clock schedules on a Friday, it may not work. But we would absolutely love you to be there. This is also an opportunity to, if there's information or snippets of newsletters that we want posted, just ideas of kind of handouts that we can present to people at these meetings. If there's any ideas that you want to add to it that we can kind of get done before the actual celebration. And then with that also, as it was mentioned the other night, there still will be the planting of the Eastern Red Bud in Wilson Park. It just won't be a celebration. It'll just be planted later. You were also welcome to go there. If you wanted to pick out a time that worked for anybody, we can gladly accommodate that.
Very good. Okay, so just to reiterate, Friday, December 5th at 10 a.m. at Cuthbert Park, we're going to be planting a Japanese maple and I'll be there.
I will be there as well.
Okay.
Good. Yeah. All right. Full Ptac. There you go.
Charles Street, Craven Street Drainage Project.
So I've got some, last meeting, we agreed on some questions to shoot over to the city to see if we can get a little bit better clarification for our upcoming report that we're going to have to do. So the first one, and this is, I received this from City Manager Scott Marshall and also the Capital Improvements Director, Raul Dominguez. So one of our first questions was about an arborist report for the Charles Craven Port Public Drainage Projects. I'm going to read it verbatim. An arborist report was not requested as the tree was in the path of construction and the root system would have been extremely compromised. The tree would have suffered catastrophic decline and died because of construction. The pipe diameter at this location is 72 inches, which requires an approximate trench width of 14 feet, I'm assuming, in this location to account for the trench and box protection and to all for placement of the pipe. To protect the existing buildings in this area, the pipe trench could not be shifted either direction to avoid impacts to the majority of the tree's root system. Excavation would be within the tree's canopy and against its trunk. Additionally, given the size of the equipment needed to excavate this trench and place the large pipe, the tree canopy would have needed to have been substantially cut back, which would have applied great stress to the tree. The proposed pipe trench excavation also follows the existing drainage pipe location and takes into consideration various subsurface utilities and limiting impacts to these utilities. Number two, our request to be presented with alternative design plans. Alternative design for the drainage system was considered. However, state agencies would not approve the deviation as it would have caused a major impact on the shellfish and sea life along the marsh. The state and federal agencies mandated that we discharge the enlarged storm drain systems as the existing outfall location. If the location was moved, these agencies would have considered the drainage project as a new development outfall, which would require an individual permit as well as the drainage area meeting current regulatory standards, which would have resulted in the installation of numerous water quality stormwater BMPS. The permitting process for an individual permit would have not been achievable given the grant's funding schedule. Installation of water quality BMPS would have resulted in a construction price far exceeding the grant's funds. It would also require purchase of private property to construct these BMPs, as they are not allowed within the DOT road typically. Additionally, this additional work would not have been achievable within the grant's timelines. A list of other trees that will be affected by this project and what measures have been taken to mitigate their disturbance is another one of our questions that we had posed. Additionally, the mitigation schedule for all trees to be affected. A sycamore tree at North Street across from the post office will need to be removed at its root zone and will be critically impacted by the excavation required for the pipe trench. The pipe trench could not be shifted as there are multiple underground utilities, including gas, sewer, and water along the westbound lanes of North Street. This tree is also located within the SCDOT row. Root pruning was considered for this tree. However, given its size and canopy, it was determined that the tree would have suffered decline and died post-construction. Number 4, the contractor who is hired to remove the tree, and whether that contract was a sole source contract or put out to bid. The contractor was a subcontractor working as an agent of Gulfstream, and therefore no bidding was necessary for this work. Number 5, the timeline concerning when the removal of the tree was first proposed. The tree was part of the initial plan. As for the timeline of the tree being cut down, we waited until all approval and permits from regulatory agencies were in place before moving forward. I, the CIP director, in this case Raul Dominguez, advised that Ptac in an October meeting, in which time the committee had no questions, and the committee was also advised of a plan to mitigate for the loss of the tree. Number 6, if there are items that the city believes that were not necessary to complete prior to the commencement of the project, we would like to have the explanation and citation of the city ordinances that allow this for our report. And the response was, I am not sure what items you may be referring to.
Thank you. Very good. Okay, comments.
So one of the things that really stuck out for me is number 3, a list of other trees that will be affected by this project and what measures have been taken to mitigate their disturbance. Additionally, the mitigation schedule for all trees to be affected. The response that we received from the city states that there is going to be a sycamore tree that is going to be removed on North Street across from the post office.
Is that 1 or 2 sycamores?
It's 1 sycamore. So I actually have, let me
I
pull
just got a phone call here. I listened to the voicemail. She tried to catch me before this meeting, because she called me 1 minute after this meeting started. She said 2 sycamores at the corner of Charles and North are to be taken down.
Okay.
I don't know what to make of that. First I heard it, and the first I heard it, it's almost at the same time as.
Are they tagged? I mean, how does she know they're gonna be taken down?
I don't know. She lives very close to the post office, I can tell you that.
Okay.
I'm sure you know her, but
I appreciate her contacting you.
so. Yeah, I don't know what to make of that.
So this past weekend, I went out and I walked the length of the entire project, identifying trees. Now, again, I will simply say that I am not a professional arborist, so there might be trees, there might be more trees that could be affected. I myself have identified under our codes 15 trees total that are a combination of specimen and landmark trees that regardless of removal, they are going to be affected because of the critical root zone that we have. And I took measurements from where they've got from the trunk of the tree to where they've got the markings for where the trench is going to be dug. This includes 9 landmark trees and 6 specimens. I've got a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 live oak trees, ranging from, pretty much diameters of 35 inches, 23 and 24 inches, 40 inches. I've got the magnolia on the corner of Bay and Charles. I have an eastern red cedar, which is on the west side of Charles between Bay and Port Republic. I have another magnolia that is considered a landmark magnolia on the west side of Charles between Port Republic and Craven Street. And I've actually got both two sycamores. I've got a sycamore on the east side of West Street between Craven and North, and another sycamore on the south side of North between Charles and West. And that last one, that sycamore that they're talking about removing is 131 inches in circumference or 41.72 inches in diameter.
To clarify, the voicemail said 2 sycamores may be taken down or something to that effect. And then the text, she's texting me, and she says, I'll read it verbatim. The sycamore at the intersection of North and Charles are being measured by the construction company. So I don't know. It's good public involvement there,
Okay,
but yeah.
so I have kind of a question here. So
I'm feeling really concerned because if this is what Mr.
Domingos.
Yes, if he knows of only one tree that is gonna be removed and all of these other trees it appears that they're gonna be affected, then what can we do to protect them? I mean, essentially.
Well, I will say our ordinances outline, does outline, root invigoration, and there
Which
is a
should have-
schedule for that.
Which should have been done earlier in the year.
Yeah,
that
it's,
correct?
yeah, it's 3 months minimum. It's a 3-month minimum for,
So
for
it's
that.
too late to get that going at this point, right? I mean, do we call upon Michael Murphy to go and assess the trees? Is that possible to do?
Yeah,
To
I
go.
think that's something that we could look into.
You know, go in and have him take a look at, what we can do to hopefully save the trees. Because, once they go in and cut those roots,
Yeah,
they're gonna be direly affected. There's
I
no
will
doubt.
say, the one that I'm probably the most concerned about is the one that is on the northeast corner of Port Republic and Charles. That is a live oak there in the corner of that,
Okay.
it's the live oak that's on the corner of that house's property.
Mhm.
That one is 126 inches in circumference, making it 40 inches in diameter, which would actually be comparable to the oak trees that are
Oh,
down,
that's right.
yeah, they're right down on Bay Street along the waterfront.
So no doubt, like it's probably 100 years or older.
Older,
Yeah.
yeah, because based off of because what happens is when they're gonna cut into the road, and also as that one little segment of Port Republic, they're gonna essentially, if you consider, if you look at it as a circle, right, and the trees in the middle, if you consider a circle and you cut along Charles Street and then Port Republic, you are essentially affecting almost 75% of the root structure in that particular tree alone.
Sure, right.
So I'm not really sure how it's gonna live after that.
So is it possible, do you contact Michael Murphy? Yes.
We can.
And
Reach out.
can we reach out to him right away?
I'll write it.
Okay, thank you, just because we have great concern about what happened. Thank you for doing this.
No, of course. The other part, let's see here, the other question that I had.
Same documents.
Yeah, that's the email. So I've been asking the city to be able to cite the ordinance in, that allows the city to not follow the procedure for specimen and landmark trees on public works projects.
Right,
I myself, again, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm not able to find anything that exempts the city from having to follow their the ordinances regarding, because basically my understanding of it is there are two different processes when it comes to being able to cut down a specimen or landmark tree. On one hand, we have our regular process, which is the getting the special tree permit. And as part of that is consultation with an arborist, getting an arborist report on it. The alternative design plans. And then the way that it's worded is basically consultation with the city, so you can interpret that as discussing it with Ptac or going to, if the city denies the permit, it goes to the zoning board of appeals and they make a final determination whether the tree can be cut down. And that's one part of it. Now, there is an exemption in there that says that if the tree is part of a site development plan, and is included as basically a larger project, they don't have to have, and my interpretation of it is they don't have to have a separate permit for cutting the tree down, but it doesn't say that you don't have to consult with an arborist or have alternative design plans. That's my understanding of the code. I have asked the city staff to be able to provide where in the code it exempts them from the arborist report and the alternative design plans because it's a public works project. And I have not been provided with that citation specifically.
Wouldn't really say it's a public works, it's a capital improvement project, kind of gets tricky when you say
Yeah.
public works.
Yeah,
So
Right.
it's,
Well,
it'd be
it's-
deemed a capital.
yeah, capital improvement project. I have not been able to see where that is specifically saying, no, the city does not have to get the arborist report or the alternative design plans.
so notwithstanding that, where does this go? That's an appropriate question. Where does this go? Do you, present that to city council? I mean, what do we do? That's the question I have.
You can obviously, sorry, I don't.
Oh, no, yeah.
You can obviously make recommendations, reach out to city staff again. I can facilitate that, or you guys can facilitate that, but obviously I think there's more questions that the committee seems to want to ask moving forward. With the information that.
Can you do that and copy us on it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And the other part of it, if we're just, again, if we just put aside the tree removal part, there's nothing in our code that says that because it might be a capital improvement project, we don't have, that the city is exempted from going forward with mitigation measures to include root invigoration for the trees that are going to be affected. Because our codes explicitly say that, if there is going to be soil disturbance within the critical root zone, and we just increased the tree protection zone from 6 inches of 1 inch DBH to now, it's now gone up to 12 inches of 1 inch DBH. So critical root zone for some of these, for these trees, and I'm just going to run it off, 35 feet, 24 feet, 32 feet, 24 feet, 40 feet, 19 feet, 22 feet, 23, 24, 39, 18, 33, 21, 38, 42 feet.
That goes straight into your path.
Because I
It's
measured,
hard across the street from where these.
because I measured from the trunk to where they've got it marked out on the road, where the trench is going to be, where the pipe is going to be run. That's not including the width of the trench, which is supposed to be about 10 feet wide. And it's anywhere from about 20 feet off of the trunk to as little as 8 feet off the trunk. So
That's huge.
I'm not really sure. I think that would probably be another question, is if there's a part in the code that the city is exempted from doing the root invigoration to keep these trees alive,
I think,
because it's a capital.
I haven't seen anything in the code regarding that. Have you?
No.
I mean, in your research, I have not.
if there was.
So is there? I don't know if this was covered, but I was dealing with tree and that tree message. Is there a difference between, they say in the historic district, you already brush your teeth, you gotta go get a permit or whatever. So is there a difference between what they do with trees in the historic district than if it was any other neighborhood?
There isn't, because in order to have an effective tree ordinance and tree code, it has to be ubiquitous. So basically, it has to apply to not only private entities, but also public entities in the same measure of force with limited exemptions. One of the only exemptions that I've ever been able to find is utility projects coming in. But even those still have a level of scrutiny that they have to go through. They can't just come through and just say, oh, we're just gonna, we're just gonna remove the tree because they actually still have somewhat of a process that they have to follow. It's a little bit less scrutiny, but there is a level of review to that.
Okay. Any more questions?
So that is,
I mean, we have a lot of concerns. So the next step is that you're going to contact them and then copy us on that and. But at this time, in my view, time is of the essence. Because they're moving along with this their project.
And Mr. Marshall indicated it's the Gulfstream's the one who has all the answers that we're looking for. Like, they're the ones who contracted to cut down the tree, they're the ones who looked at the
So I don't know
other
if
thing.
Gulfstream is the one that's contracted to cut down the tree. I know they're the contractor that is working the project. Whether they contract out the tree services to somebody else, that's information that would have to be gathered.
Did that say that it was a subcontractor of Gulfstream?
Was this working as an agent of Gulfstream?
Right, that.
Because most of the time contractors that are awarded RFP for the development can use outside subcontractors.
And one of the things, well, the other part of this as well is, this is from City Manager, Mr. Marshall. I will also ask Raul to provide the contact information to you for the SCOR project manager, and we still don't have, there's no contact information. Are you able to reach out to the city to, thank you. Because I guess the other avenue is if, this committee agrees that we reach out independently to SCOR to find out who is managing this project and talk and speak to them directly.
Wait a minute, we have that information.
and then maybe, I think I read something on city Facebook, they may be setting up an office at the corner of Charles and Crane, the mobile office on the unpaid section where it
It was
says
a meet the team one.
Yeah, I bet they have names. There was one that had names on it.
Okay.
Program manager, John Soft, Capital Project Management Program.
For SCOR.
That's not it.
We can contact the, JJ Suave. He was the deputy city manager, no longer here.
That was a woman.
That was the one.
Right here are SCOR program manager,
Okay,
project
Pam
manager.
Hendrick, Shauna Webb, and Lisa Falta. Okay.
Where
So
are you on that?
meet the team,
Okay, the team.
yeah. It's towards the beginning.
Drainage design lead,
That's not his.
environmental permit lead, those people who need to be,
Yeah, that's part of the,
engineering team.
yeah, that's that one. Because my understanding when it comes to these grants is when these grants are handed out, there's no. Very, very rarely is there an exemption from not following local ordinances, so. In case of, protecting and mitigating these other trees that are gonna be affected. Unless the project has a specific carve out, the grant has a specific carve out that the local ordinances do not have to be followed, then the mitigation has to be followed. At the local level.
Okay. Okay, So we're really at an impasse, I mean, right? I mean, we are. Just, there's nothing we can do about them moving forward with this. And, not protecting the trees. I mean, am I correct in saying that?
I would need the report from Michael Murphy. Obviously as.
Yeah, he
not being
hasn't,
certified
he hasn't,
arborist,
yeah,
Yeah,
he knows about this, of course, but he has not been contacted to do a report. But once again, time is of the essence, and and we need to do something to protect the trees, and I don't know that we can do anything to prevent them from taking the trees down. Your thought?
Well, it doesn't sound like they're gonna take them down, they're gonna,
Well, what
Well,
about?
at least
the
one,
sycamores?
at least one's gonna be cut
Yeah,
down.
what are
Well,
two
one,
sycamores?
like the other 14 that you listed off, that will be affected or.
Entirely
The-
affected.
Yeah, I mean, the issue is, again, you're talking about, with these particular trees, you're talking about taking almost 50% of the root structure
Right,
out in order to dig the trench. And all of these trees, eastern red cedar, magnolia, live oaks, all these trees, the root structures within the first 12 to 36 inches of the surface. So by digging deeper than that, digging down 15 to 20 feet, it's almost a guarantee, it's going to be a guaranteed clean severance of the root structure. So if the city or the state is not, doing mitigation measures to try and keep these trees alive, then I personally don't see how they're gonna live.
I don't see them doing any mitigation measures.
the most difficult thing to measure when it comes to construction damage to trees is that it usually takes up to 6 months to a year to even notice the signs of damage from construction.
And we'll probably lose
that
these in
is-
the next 2 to 5.
That's the most difficult part, is to be able to diagnose what the issues are, because it usually takes up to a year to even notice the first symptoms of damage to construction.
So this says, I was trying to clarify, so I said 1 or 2 sycamores, and she replied, one was being measured, the bigger one. And, so yeah.
Was that from this weekend? Because that might have been me.
No,
Because I was out there.
she texted just now,
Oh, okay.
I know her name,
That was today.
just
Or-
now, yeah, I mean,
Okay.
yeah, so 5 minutes ago.
Okay.
And then I like to read this, so this says. This is my summary of the Dallas, Texas, urban forest master plan, and this could not ring more true with this drainage project with these trees potentially coming down. It says. And it's interesting that I wrote this down, and I read this right, and I made these notes right before I got on Ptac, because I wanted to read something about trees, I'm not a tree person. It says, I'll read it verbatim, all too often. The urban forest is treated not as an asset, but relegated to a luxury or worse, as a hindrance to other land uses and infrastructure. And then I had one before that's interesting. It says a sound plan for the management of the urban forest is critical to ensure the resource is protected, maintained, and grown. So if we're, if we're on the honor system, and we're hoping they're on the honor system, and they're not, nobody's pulling a quick when they're, taking down a tree, if there's no, the process, you're saying the process wasn't followed or whatever, so.
I mean, for me, I would like to be able to find a way to justify, having to remove a tree at the end, logical way of explaining it. But my own personal issues that I have is when we as a committee ask for documentation or answers and the immediate response is, well, you don't have a right to ask questions. You don't have a right to be looking into this. It throws, for me personally, it throws up a lot of red flags, because I start thinking, okay, if the tree still had to come down, then there should have been a process that should have been followed. Putting the tree, the tree removal aside, there's still a process. With the remaining 15 trees, there's still a process. There's still things that you have to do even if it's a capital improvement project, there's nothing in the codes and ordinances that says that the city is exempt from being able to try and keep these things alive. So,
So where are we?
I think what we should do is we should follow up.
Need answers.
Yeah, but immediate answers.
Yeah,
you
because I
know,
mean, there's,
Not weeks from now.
they're supposed to start moving up the street in the next month or so.
Mhm.
And then that's gonna immediately go right into the, that oak, yeah, that oak there on the corner of Port Republic and, Charles Street. I guess they, if it's all right with you, I mean, I've got some questions about some of these answers because they don't necessarily answer the question. In my opinion, it's kind of like the timeline concerning when the removal of the tree was first proposed. The tree was part of the initial plan. As for the timeline of the tree being cut down, waited until all approval and permits from regulatory agencies were in place before moving forward. And then we were advised in an October meeting. It doesn't really it doesn't give me like a date, like, hey, this is when, because I was looking for more along the lines of like, hey, this was first proposed when they, when, what's his name, Ismail, whatever, the drainage guy. Hassan, there you go,
Oh.
Hassan Ismail, the drainage design lead. So, if he's entering this in and putting this in and basically goes, okay, well, we're gonna run the pipe here, and then now there's it creates a conflict and saying this tree will have to be removed. I was looking more along the lines of like, what's that exact, what was that timeline, June of 2024, or whatever the timeline is, and then how it has kind of progressed through the different steps of the project.
Then,
Does that make sense?
right,
Yeah.
then the response to this should be clarification.
I think so. I
Right.
think we should. Is the committee comfortable with me putting together questions and to kind of get some better clarification on
Yes,
these?
especially like on number one.
Yeah.
Like an arborist is an arborist for a reason, like they know and understand trees and damage to trees, so who made the decision that this tree would be extremely, I mean, I can walk out and say, oh wow, that looks pretty close, like that tree might die.
Yeah, so that's a good
But an oak
point.
tree might die, but a pine tree won't, because that root goes straight down.
Yeah,
Sure.
and I guess that would be a question is how, if no arborist was requested, no arborist was consulted, how would the city know that a tree would suffer catastrophic decline if there's no arborist on staff?
Who made that, who got to make that call?
Common sense.
And that's what I'd say, like, common sense for an oak tree, yes. Pine tree, that's gonna be different, you can come a lot closer to a pine tree than you can come to an oak tree.
No, and I don't disagree with that, but I think that they probably just took a look at it and said, we need to run our pipe right here, and it's gonna be many feet wide. And it's gonna kill the tree.
Well, I also think from perspective, that if project goes through and you don't remove the tree and the damage is done, and then you have to go back in there to remove the tree and its root system, would you do damage to the pipe that you just installed? There is the devil's advocate to both. So that is another option from that perspective. If you're making.
With it being so
investment,
close to
yeah,
where the
being
pipe
so
was
close,
going through.
you do play that game where if it doesn't survive in 6 months to a year, you're still going back to
Mhm.
take the tree out and move, and
Yeah,
could you
further-
possibly.
Further maintenance on the pipe could
Yeah.
jeopardize the tree. Wait, and that's the thing is I think this committee kind of understands that and is pretty pragmatic about those types of considerations, but I think, at least for me, I have a lot of concerns that, this might have been done quickly versus I think there might be an issue of quantity of time versus the quality of work. If that makes sense. So, they don't have a whole lot of time to get this project done, so corners got cut essentially.
Oh, they didn't adhere to, the rules and regulations that they should have. For instance,
Yeah.
getting the arborist report, or we thought they should have put bids out, or.
And I do.
I think this project's funded until June.
Well, the deadline is, what is it? The deadline is, December of 26. But they have to basically get all the, they have to basically do all the final billing out, in about the July, August timeframe, if I'm not mistaken.
Mhm.
And that way everything can finalize, ahead of schedule, and if there are any kind of conflicts, they can resolve those, before December.
I still do not understand, after all was said and done, why they had to start this project before January. I really do not understand. With even the time constraints that they have, and, having to have all the work completed, say, by, the middle part of the summer. Why couldn't they just wait to start it?
I think we can probably get more answers from SCORE on that. I think we would be able to get more answers from SCORE on that kind of decision making.
Because I went over to Ladies Island today through the Bay Street area and down, Port Republic Street, and it's a mess.
It is a mess.
It really is a mess. And coming back from Ladies Island, I came back across the old bridge, and, it's stop and go. And I once again feel for the vendors on Bay Street. That gets me. So.
All right, so do we want to reach out to SCORE in the city and kind of take a two-prong?
Sure,
Okay,
I think so.
and is this committee comfortable with me kind of taking a look at some of these answers and getting the topics a little bit more back on track?
Any answers?
Yeah, and so,
Their answers?
yeah, basically, just kind of guiding it to saying, hey, clarification of that's not exactly what we were looking for. We appreciate the information, but this is, we're looking for this item specifically.
Are all of you in agreement?
I am.
Joe?
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Anything else?
I don't think there's anything else on this particular project that I can think of. Do you guys have any other comments or concerns on this?
I don't, anything further than what I've already stated, so.
Joe?
I just say, maybe it goes without saying, if they're gonna cut down a tree, we get, if we wanna try to get in front of it, I mean, once they cut the tree down, I mean, it's kind of like, I don't know after the fact, so I don't know. So, yeah, I mean, probably, seems more productive if they're about to cut a tree, hey, is there a process, blah, 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 if they just cut the tree down, we're too late. As Larry Bird said, you're too late, Mark.
All of us will be chained to the tree on Charles Street.
Yeah, we can't take it down now, right? Get a good padlock,
Ptac.
don't lose the
Has chained
key,
themselves to the tree.
don't lose that key.
Okay, moving right along.
Right?
Urban forestry management plan.
You want to take this or? So, Barb, as you know, we've attempted in the past to kind of look into this. So myself, I have the email here if anybody would like to relocate. We reached out in February 20th of 2024 to seek what the cost would be for a tree canopy assessment. From attending many tree seminars, trying to learn to become an arborist myself, the most important step to an urban forestry plan is a tree canopy assessment. It will tell you which direction you should go, give you the information needed. There are multiple different types of plans. There's not just a master plan. There's also short-term plans. There's 5-year plans, 10-year plans. You can have a master forestry plan, you can have a management plan. It just depends on the information that you get and which direction that the city would like to go in. So in this packet from the state forestry, you can see, and the company that is there, the green infrastructure, is the contact of who I reached out to get an answer. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get any information on pricing. They just kind of asked what the budget was, which, working for municipality, we need the information of what it would cost to be able to form a budget for it. So again, since it's being brought back up, I would suggest that we can go through the state forestry to see what grants are available, because there are grants that are available to help cities out, and municipalities. So the information is in these packets for us to kind of move along the process. But I do believe that no matter what, it starts with a tree canopy assessment to be able to get that data to let us know, hey, this is where we're at, this is where we were, this is where we want to be. And then as the plan comes together from all parties, you decide this is the direction we want to go based off of this data.
Didn't you look, and I'm going back, I don't know, sometime. Didn't you look at some point as to what the cost would be?
We were trying
It
to,
was,
so
it was, tens of thousands of dollars, $40,000 just sticks in my mind, but
I think
that could be off.
depending on what you're looking for, because there's different types of canopy assessments of what they highlight, almost like different packages. So they can pinpoint what your canopy was to what it is nowadays. They can pinpoint locations where future plantings could go based off the GIS information that they get and satellite information. So it fluctuates. I would probably assume the lower the package you go, the cheaper it is, but based off of what I think most people have voiced, you're probably looking into hundreds of thousands of dollars for a canopy assessment, which is why the grants through the state forestry and other entities help that process, whether they're matching grants or full grants, it just depends. But there's options out there, but it all depends on kind of which direction you want to go. They do host seminars for the urban forestry plans that they're free for any municipality. They host them, I believe, once a year, so I can reach out to our local representative and see if there's another one planned in the future that maybe we could just chime in on, see what they say. If we have any questions, they can answer them there. But I do believe our best route moving forward to gather information probably would be through the State Forestry Commission.
So one of the things that my understanding was brought up on Tuesday night when you called before City Council was that Ptac had not done an urban forestry management plan,
Correct.
right?
The city has never done one. The
Well-
city has only done a, I believe it's a tree assessment.
Yeah, but it was the way that it was charged from city council is that as part of our responsibilities, we have not fulfilled those responsibilities essentially.
Right.
So Adam, the tree canopy percentage, or is it correct that you do a tree inventory in order to do that?
So there's multiple facets to it, but a tree inventory is one that goes along with it.
So this is from 2021, the Dallas Forest Plan. It says tree inventory costs per tree, average in the US is $4 a tree. And it may have gone up from then, who knows? It
I
may
mean, to take an inventory?
Yeah, each tree is $4 for a tree inventory.
Whether if you
It's
hire
an average.
a company to come in and do it for
Unless,
you.
maybe we find a good Samaritan or volunteer.
So
We'd
that,
have to work in conjunction probably with a certified arborist.
so that many years ago, I remember doing neighborhood walkabouts with members of Ptac and counting the trees, on the various streets in Mossy Oaks and, other neighborhoods. And, that was at least 10, 12, I don't, first of all, think that this has ever been done. To your knowledge, has it?
To my knowledge, no, the only thing that you can find obviously in records is just the assessment that they said, I believe was 2008. Last time they did a tree assessment, I believe it's on the city website,
2008.
if I'm correct. I would have to refer back to the city Beaver, web agency.
Would you be able to, if you send this link to? Okay.
You talking about, when you say tree assessment, you talking about like a couple roads, they looked at it? For the-
So I believe it was almost kind of like a tree inventory, where I believe it's kind of what Barb was talking about, where they went through different neighborhood,
Oh,
counted trees, they counted the species, size, just to kind of have a tree inventory, but obviously the tree inventories, if they're not kept or updated over time, lost tree canopy, planting new tree canopies, the information from 2008 means
Nothing,
nothing.
yeah.
Which, working in conjunction, a tree canopy assessment along with a tree inventory. But I believe the most crucial part is the tree canopy assessment. Because at least then you can see what you had to what you lost, what you have today.
And that's mostly, I'm gonna say drone work,
Google Earth,
Yeah, well, it's a
Yeah.
lot, so.
okay.
Google Earth Pro.
I'm assuming-
And then there's overlays that you can do. You can do overlays that basically set the city limits and then have the program overall greenery essentially.
It is in this packet where they talk about
I think that would be an expedient thing to be able to get,
What,
the tree canopy
assessment?
assessment, because you're essentially using a computer program to pull that information. It's already there, you just are setting the parameters. And am I
starts
thinking
on
that
page
correctly?
29.
Yeah, potential canopy areas, there we go.
Yeah.
so you know what, I might have said this a while ago, this isn't in my notes from Dallas, they came up with the tree canopy percentage for the whole city, and then they actually had, they had smaller percentages for sections of the city. Yeah, it was a good report to read, so, and then Atlanta, I'm surprised Atlanta doesn't have an urban forest plan, but they
do online, and it's 2008.
2008 to 2010, I saw, or, yeah.
So they have some astronomical numbers that they planted. They must have a whole team of volunteers and teams, because they plant. On the average, they planted 12 trees a day for the last 40 years in Atlanta. And that total is 180,000 trees. That's crazy. Incredible.
If you look to page 36 of your packet, you can see creating a urban forest plan. The planning action sequence, it starts with a tree canopy assessment. And then it moves to setting canopy goals. To use data collected from the tree canopy assessment to set canopy goals for the community. Then it moves on to a master plan for the the distribution of the tree canopy, including a visioning process with the community. Moves on to a tree inventory of the public trees to be phased by location, streets, parks, right of ways, and public facilities. To moving on to a management plan for the active care of the urban forest based on the community vision. Moves on to 6, which is risk assessment, can be part of the management plan to inform needs and costs. Note this step could be completed before the management plan and used to inform it. 7, there is a storm plan. Obviously, we're very familiar with that. To prepare the urban forest to reduce the risk of damage from major storms.
That's 101.
And then it kind of goes into detail of what you should do for forming a planning team. You see a lot, there's city parks included, public works, planning, engineering, geographical information systems, so GIS, emergency management, you have your city manager's officer, and then it continues to your tree board, beautification committees, planning commission, and city council. So obviously, this is not just gonna be a one-trick pony, this is gonna take a baseball team.
It's not gonna be a quick phone call. Okay, so
I think it's a lasting legacy.
notwithstanding all that. What is our next step? The urban forestry management plan.
I think if you agree to reach out to State Forestry and see what other cities that are looking to develop a urban forestry plan have done, what's been successful for them, especially attending some of these seminars. There are other cities, counties that we can reach out that have implemented, that can give information on that. I know that, I think it was Greenville was there the last time I went to Folly Beach, and they presented how they went through the procedure. I could probably maybe reach out to them and see if there's a PowerPoint presentation that they can share with us, that we can kind of look through step by step of what they've done. Obviously, you would try to match it with a city that kind of falls with us in the low country here.
I was gonna say, I'll be honest, I'll definitely be much more interested in seeing what has worked in coastal communities versus inland, because our environments are vastly different and our concerns are much more different as well.
So that would include Charleston,
I would say
You
Georgetown.
can look
Savannah,
up,
even
I
Savannah.
believe,
to be honest, you can go all the way, you can go as far up as North Carolina.
Yeah.
You know, essentially anywhere there's where hurricane hits, you get all of Florida, Louisiana was oddly enough would be a good one. Because Louisiana is also, high water table, low land, very similar environment to us.
Okay, so you're gonna reach out?
I get, or if they can, whatever y'all need me to do.
Now, is there anybody else that we can talk to, Sustainable Forestry Initiative? So this was like, again, on this particular one that I handed out to you guys. This one here, yeah, on the last page. I just did kind of a cursory glance at, South Carolina Forestry Commission, US Forest Service, and then Sustainable Forestry Initiative. Although I'm pretty sure SFI, the way that is, set up is basically benchmarking our own urban forest against their sustainability standard. And then basically getting, I don't know if the terms of those grants is basically as a reward for surpassing those standards or as a way to basically bridge that gap.
Yeah.
So that'd be something, I can do. Do you and I want to look into additional places we can get grants for? Okay. To kind of get this, get the party started. Do we know how much is in the tree fund for the city or that goes to this?
Maybe in public works, I don't have access to outside departments,
We-
but that's. a
We
question.
did ask that question. And we got no answer. Again,
Are you able to ask or should we
should we ask,
ask?
Because
Because
there's,
there's,
I can ask.
which is in the tree fund?
I don't know, maybe I'm dreaming, can we move on from that question? We have to know.
we do, yeah.
I wouldn't care if it was a bicycle fund, I don't know, so I don't know where Atlanta would be planting all these trees, would it be, is it city property, is it resident, most of the.
What's the right way of the city? First, 15 feet?
I believe so, yeah.
So most of the tree canopy percentage, I know this is not Atlanta, but most of the tree canopy percentage in Atlanta is on it says single home residential streets. I think Public Works is planting 12, 15 trees a year, they're doing just fine, I don't know if volunteers come into play, and then, the tree board in Savannah, they got it by ordinance that they can raise their own funds.
There are, in addition to what you're saying, there are certain examples, especially on the South Carolina Forestry Commission website, that show that there have been instances where they implemented programs to promote and also help citizens plant trees to assist with their master plan for forestry. So
Do you think the city would even consider, I don't know, consider incentives along the lines of like, hey, you'll knock off, I'm just gonna throw this out there, probably not likely, knock off $50 off your property tax bill if you plant a tree in your yard and make sure it lives in,
The county.
we would probably have,
yeah.
every property would probably have 150 trees planted in a row, if that was the case.
I mean, it's a great,
I think
They don't give money, they'll lower your tax.
I see incentives, like the
Yeah.
city probably could look into different avenues as to what those incentives might be. There's other communities that have it written into their master plan, so I would say maybe depending on what works for us. down there,
Doing a grant and like, you know, here's a tree, go plant it, yard type of deal. You do something along those lines, that way it's not.
It's like an Earth Day event.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, I'm sure there's
Come get
different
your-
avenues that the city could take, we would just have to look into that and to see what that would pertain to, and then obviously what the cost would be, because obviously as a municipality, city, you're working off a set budget from fiscal to fiscal year, so it would just depend on the information that we gather from those incentives, of which direction the city would be comfortable moving in.
Okay. Anything else?
No, just to recap, so we are gonna ask about how much is in the tree fund again.
I will do that.
All right,
It took,
well,
it
you and I will look into grants.
took Dallas, it looks like it took Dallas 2 years to come up with their plan, because it says they embarked in 2019, and along with the Texas Tree Foundation, they were a tremendous help. In 2021, they got a 74-page report.
So I'm staggered by how much it costs, you know, when you were thinking into the hundreds of thousands, I was absolutely staggered by that. But I guess we'll
It
see.
differs from which company also provides those services.
Sure,
It's probably something that would have to go out to either bank funded or maybe an RFP to see if companies would want to take on the contract. It just depends again.
I
how
wonder
the
if like
city
Michael
wants to go.
Murphy would know, like, has he ever been involved in an urban reassessment?
I'm not sure, because I believe him and one other are the only ones in Beaver County that I know of that I was outside of, you know. So it would depend on if he assists with other people in the county.
Well, and I was gonna say, like, just in his past,
Yeah.
work experience, like, I don't even know if he's from Beaver, he came from somewhere.
yeah, I was gonna say, out of curiosity, I mean, I can call and ask him.
I've got some, I've got some contacts from, you know, my past life, living in DC, so let me see if there might be a few, I might know of a few people who, work with organizations and nonprofits who spearhead this, so I'll reach out to some of them, put some feelers out and see if there's anything, because I'm sure that, you know, there'd be a good, you know, a good initiative for them to, you know, work with a coastal city that, you know, is affected by, you know, hurricanes and in the south that doesn't have a management plan in place, and basically have that be, you know, one of their flagship projects essentially.
Please do. Be great. Okay. New business, public comment. Any public comment?
Thanks for coming.
Only. New business, oh yeah. Oh, that was the discussions on duties and responsibilities for the ordinance. So are we agreed, so that was one of the things that Nathan brought up at the meeting, was if we still wanted to spearhead an urban forestry management plan, and also, you know, basically just the other outlines of our responsibilities to include the Tree City USA certification. Do we still want to keep that under our purview versus relinquishing it to?
If I may,
Please.
so in question to that, just we want to put in the public record, because this is what was approved by the committee. What was not, what was presented at the council work session. So we just want to work along with you guys, because we want
Which work
to
session?
the one on the 18th.
Okay.
So this is what the committee had voted for the recommendations. It shall provide the city manager as requested an assessment of city parks and will make recommendations as to improvements, decommissioning, and or the commissioning of parks and public open spaces within the city. It shall be responsible for the planting of the annual Arbor Day celebration and will recommend necessary procurements. It shall make recommendations to the city council to prioritize allocation of monies from within the city's tree fund account on an annual basis. The commission shall recommend strategies for implementations of an urban forestry plan and shall collaborate with the city to evaluate and execute the plan. The commission shall also provide recommendations for the maintenance schedules for the urban forestry plan, should one be selected. It shall be part of the city tree removal appeals and give recommendations based on the information provided. It shall be responsible for providing recommendations regarding review and approval of park signage. The commission shall be involved in the developmental process and provide recommendations for any project regarding city-owned parks, trees, and right-of-ways. Again, this is not, I just want clarification because what was voted on was not what was presented. And we just want to know, because like I asked before, when Joe and Isaiah first came on board, what past boards had voted on didn't have to be what this current board moved forward with. Our job as staff liaison is to assist you in whatever you need. You know, we don't have a dog in a fight. I want you as a community to be comfortable. And if those are not the responsibilities you want, I want you to put forth the responsibilities that you presented before council, because obviously that's the direction that this board wants to go. But in order for that to take place, we need those to be voted on during these meetings.
Okay,
So I don't see much of a consequence if we didn't do the urban forest master plan, there was, it was in the duties, so the Savannah board. They didn't implement their duties and ordinance until 98 years after their existence,
okay,
which would be 1994. We had our first meeting in 1896, I think we just need to, I think it's more important that we get something done and we're working good together and. Obviously the duties help, I guess, but, of course, I like to, if you wanna do that, and I want to put the recreation in there, but. And that's actually in the strategic plan for the city, and as. On the meeting Friday. Barbara said we can discuss any subject at this meeting, but as far as action. That's what we get accomplished is another ballgame, so, thanks for reading that out, Adam.
Well,
Yeah.
my goal, it's not to point anything out, it's to say, I'm here to advocate for this community. And I don't want you to vote for something or to vote on that and put that forth. That's not what this committee wants to do, because I will not hold this committee to the same standard that past members wanted. They are no longer on the board. This is your board. You should have the responsibilities and duties that you so please. And so if what you presented before council is what this committee votes on and wants, then I suggest that we move forward with that and put it on record.
so what you presented to city council was in part rejected, correct?
One of them was the, so like the, the binding decision. So say, for example, and this is obviously not you guys, but this is just, the scenario that could present itself. City comes to Ptac and they say, where would you guys like to plant this tree? And we could say, we would love to plant the tree right here. That's our recommendation. There's no obligation for the city to follow through with planting that tree there.
Right, because nothing's binding.
Exactly, and that was what we were, that's what we're asking, is basically saying, hey, if you're gonna come ask for our recommendation, at least follow through with it unless there's some other egregious issue, then the city council obviously retains the ability to say, nope, we're not gonna go through with that. But I think, at least, if the city is going to come to us and ask for a recommendation, then at bare minimum, there should be some kind of a requirement that, whatever decision is, you have to follow through with it. Because, and what if the city said, our recommendation is we want to plant the tree here, and the city goes, okay, cool. And then they plant it over here. You see, that's the that's how it's currently set up.
Right, and it comes down
Well, I
to.
will say too, also, there have been instances where the city has followed your recommendations.
Mhm.
You know, obviously the tree plantings and comfort, you know, it's not always perfect, there's a lot of give and take. But again, you know, nothing says that you can't present these responsibility changes whenever you want to. And then it opens that dialogue back and forth between you and city council, who you're appointed by. You know, me as a staff liaison, all I can do is be the coach, you know.
Right,
I'm not here to tell you, I want you to do this. I want you guys to be happy with what you're doing. You are volunteering your time to serve the community as a tree board. I'm here to facilitate and help you along that path to whatever you choose to do. You know, so that I'm not here. I love working with you. I just want you guys to be happy with the responsibilities that you choose moving forward with. I don't want you to feel as though you have to follow what was approved by past board members.
I'm under no obligation to follow.
yeah, I don't feel obligated either, but I think one of the things that we all feel is that we were asking city council to change it from a recommendation to something that they would have to, I'm not saying this way, something that would be required, so we don't feel like we're wasting our time.
It puts,
That's it.
it puts this committee on par with the other advisory boards the city already has.
Correct.
Cause they're, when they make when they make recommendations, it's
Written in.
yeah, it's,
Right.
unless city council, and we have a problem, I don't have a problem with it. If, city council said, if we say, say for example, city comes to us, we want to plant a tree, we want to plant it here, city council comes and says, no, we're not gonna plant the tree here. I don't have a problem with that, but I would at least like to have, some level of knowledge that there is going to be a follow through. And the most recent, since I've been on this board, the most recent example that I can think of is when we made the recommendation that the tree protection zone should go from 6 inches of 1 inch DBH to 18 inches of per 1 inch DBH. And that was never presented to city council by staff on our behalf. Now, I'm not saying, I don't believe you were the one who presented it, but somebody else did, but that recommendation was never presented to city council. And I know several members had an issue with that because we were like, we're, and it was only because one of the city council members had watched that particular meeting.
Yeah.
They actually added an amendment to it. And that's part of that's part of our issue. It's kind of like, we're not making these recommendations because we sit here and be the tea and crumpet. We want to actually do something that is going to work to better the city in the long run.
Absolutely, I understand, and and Barb, as well as I do, we've been trying very hard. I know a couple of years ago when it was hard because of the requirements for Ptac, trying to find an arborist to get onto the board. We sat down with you and previous city manager to say, hey, how can we help adapt these, requirements to have a full board to be able to get you more members? We're here to help, and try to help you move forward, because I know that it was hard, especially during Southside, to make a quorum. And then they made the creation of the Southside Task Force, and then, but when.
That was, just, what was it, last week that the city manager came in and said, well, how come you weren't involved with Southside?
Yeah,
We weren't invited.
but
Well, we were excluded.
so because you couldn't meet a quorum with the committee at the time, Southside was not brought up. But when you brought to me that the committee wanted it, we orchestrated Linda Roper and Wooden Partner to come and show you the design phase for phase 1 for Southside before it was going through construction. So it was presented in a sense, not when you were hoping to, but at that time too, it was because the committee at the time, I believe you only had 3 members. I believe it was you, Gordon, and another, that it was difficult for you to get the quorum because 2 members had dropped off. So the process moved along through the task force, not saying that they took over your responsibilities, but that's how the process moved forward. And then when the time came to where we were able to get you a quorum, I heard, hey, you want it brought before you, I will make sure that Linda comes and presents it, so I get the timing wasn't perfect, but we did try on our part to accommodate those misfortunes.
Yeah, plus they also established the task force.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I mean, it helped because it was driven by a community of citizens
Mhm.
and most of Southside's design phase and incorporation of everything was through um, the community survey. You know, a lot of what the community wanted in the survey is what was implemented into Southside Park. So it's a lot give and take when it goes through. No process is perfect, but again, you know, like what this committee wants moving forward, like that's how I want the communication to be. Like if Michael says, hey, this is what I want asked, this is what we want. You know, if we go, hey, you know, I think this person is the one to answer it, then I want so-and-so, I want Kurt from planning, I want so-and-so from the city manager's office here. You know, that is where I come in and say, okay, this is what they want, you know. I want you guys to be as, yeah, I want you guys to be as direct as possible. So I can help facilitate what you guys want to do, because I do value your volunteer time in trying to help you further and help this board.
Okay.
So as I know last week we discussed about having the ability to review, tree permit cutting appeals. And then I went and did the research, you know, basically went and did the research on that. And we are not, as a committee, we are not able to because of the South Carolina Local Government Comprehensive Planning Enabling Act. Kind of a mouthful.
So that,
Yeah, right. Because essentially it has to go to a zoning board of appeals because it is an overturning of an administrative decision. So so we are not, under the current, that structure and under that law, we are not allowed to unless city council revamped a good portion of the codes and ordinances for the city. And then also, gave us training on essentially how to handle, quasi judicial, you know, hearings for these appeals.
that's funny, not funny, but we used to take care of that. That used to be part of our responsibility that many years ago. So,
What we can ask is that any tree permit that goes before the ZBOA gets gets our own recommendation. They don't have to follow it. There's no requirement for them to follow it, but it would fit in nicely because if we are expected to handle an urban forest plan for the city and manage this and make sure that we are keeping track of canopy coverage and things like that, it's a lot easier for us to do this work if we know what is coming down the pipe and what could be cut down. So we could ask city council, you know, have those types of appeals. Give us the information so that way we can make a recommendation of like, hey, you know, Ptac says, hey, we understand, you know, our recommendation would be to allow this tree to be cut down, or no, we would say this tree shouldn't be cut down and let ZBOA make the final determination on that, but at least we would be included as part of that process to make our job of managing our canopy a lot easier. Because then we actually know what's going on the planning side, not just basically, you know, this is what we'd like to do. You guys have thoughts on that, or?
We could
Because
just,
again, it wouldn't be binding at all.
Right,
one of us go down to the CBOA and give our take on the tree.
Well, we'd have to do it as
During the
a,
meeting or the appeal.
We'd have
Or you
to-
could- Or you could give a recommendation, sure.
yeah, what you're asking for is for them to submit to Ptac a review of, you know, these requests.
yeah, same as if you went and got an arborist report.
See, I don't mind doing that. I mean, I certainly don't mind, you know, taking a look at those. But the first thing that comes to my mind is that, you know, this is more of a development kind of direction versus a, you know, personal property owner. Correct? Is that?
Yeah, the tree permits are almost always private
Or you're
development.
just talking about, or private development,
Yeah, it would be,
you know,
it would
like
be,
putting a subdivision in. And I'd love to take a look at that. I mean, seriously, just, because just because in the past and so much clear cutting allowed and I
Well, again, these
very
would be,
gripey about it. So.
these would be appeals. These would not be part of the permit
Allowances.
approvals.
Right,
So if a developer came in and basically was able to hit every single part of the code that is required of them, they're, you know, and the city approves the permit, we don't
right.
get
Never see
any,
it.
yeah, we never see it. There's no review process.
Right.
But in this case, it would essentially be if there is an appeal, if there's an appeal to the ZBOA saying, hey, you know, the city administratively said, no, you can't cut this tree down, but we really want to cut this tree down.
Okay.
We could at least give a recommendation of, you know, Ptac's recommendation of, hey, yeah, the tree can be cut down, or I don't think the tree should be. ZBOA doesn't have to follow it whatsoever, because again, that part of it would only be recommendation. But at least we would be able to better manage our canopy and urban forest management plan if we knew what was coming down the line and were able to account for these. Because typically, I mean, if, you know, those appeals we're not talking about caliper trees.
Mhm.
We're talking about specimen and landmarks.
Sure.
Can I say something? Because I'm a planner with the planning department, so
Please.
we do handle tree removal applications, right? So, for instance, we have a subdivision called the Overlook at Battery Creek.
Would you like to come and stand here and introduce yourself?
So I'm Christopher Clement, we know each other, right? So I'm a planner, agreed with the city of Beaufort. My colleague Nick Navia handles tree removal pruning applications. We do have instances, of course, where we look at landmark specimen trees to be removed for development, right? So currently, we do have an instance where there are like three landmark trees in the middle of a lot, and the builder wants to put a house there. And our current development code says you have to present viable options, development options to kind of provide staff, okay, you kind of did your due diligence and kind of assessing, you know, working around the trees in order to preserve those. If you can't, you know, show good effort, but in the end, if we agree with you, staff could make that call and say, we approve your request to remove those trees, right? So you would never know, it would never go to this BOA. If we say, no, we don't agree, or, you know, of course, we always work with Mike Murphy getting arborist reports. He would lay it out and we would decide, well, based on this, yes or no. In this case, for instance, we are kind of swaying to say, well, no, if you wanna, we're not gonna grant you that request to cut those trees, then in that instance, of course, they could appeal it, the developer could appeal it. And only then you would be able to, you know, go to that meeting and kind of voice but for me, it would be interesting to see if we couldn't work with you on every single request. Right, coming to us and then maybe presenting it to you. You know, should we not, what are your opinions on this application? Because sometimes if we make an administrative call, you would never know that we would, you know, approve of removal of a tree. And then, you know what I'm saying, you would only hear about it if it goes to the ZBOA for an appeal.
You're inviting us in more at the ground level than.
Well, I kind of like where this discussion is going. I mean, because Nick who gets these applications, I mean, we're not trained arborists. We don't have the background in, you know, like you do. So based on what the arborist report from Mr. Murphy tells us, we make that administrative decision. But sometimes we don't feel necessarily very comfortable with that. So maybe it would be a good idea to kind of have that layer in between, like a advisory committee to kind of bring that to you and kind of, you know,
I mean, for myself, I would absolutely love that level of communication, because
I would certainly be happy with that.
again, it makes this job a lot easier if we know what's going on, and And like I said, I think, one of the concerns that I've heard is, that people have is, if Ptac has, too much, recommendation, ability, then, no tree will ever get cut down in the city ever again. And I responded, I said, I don't see that, because I don't think we have ever made a decision that's not pragmatic. I think we've always been very fair about,
Reasonable.
yeah, we've been very reasonable about things, so I absolutely.
You know, and you have a way in, because when it should come to an appeal to the ZBOA of what staff would then prepare a staff report to present to, to kind of back us up. So, I mean, you should be maybe part of that process too, right?
Yeah,
We work with you in order to kind of prepare the, so it's not necessarily all on us.
The report goes and it says, the
Well, we
arborist said no, we voted no, Ptac was
Yeah,
involved,
exactly.
There are
We do prepare a staff
multiple
report.
people
and
who are
we-
saying-
Yeah,
no.
Yeah. We would definitely be, we would be most welcome to that,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'd be very interested in that.
Mhm.
So,
Is it, I don't know if has planning department seen our proposal from September about, the first, planning department issue, like, for the permits, is there like a sunset date for, like, if no development occurs, it kind of like, you have to go through the permit process again, or is that?
for tree removal.
No, just like, if you're gonna, if I buy like a piece of property, right? And I decide I'm gonna build, an apartment complex on it, for example, and I submit all my permits to the city, and this is how the codes are
Yeah, we
listed
do
out.
have a sunset clause.
Okay.
Permits.
Do you know how long that is? Is it 2 years? Okay. Is there, has the planning department seen our proposal from September about making sure that if they have to come, that a development plan has to get, make sure that if there's a certain amount of time that lapses, they have to get they have to make sure their plan is still in keeping with whatever the new tree ordinance is?
Is this in conjunction with the discussions on the revisions of the tree preserve or the tree mitigation and tree preservation section in
Yes.
chapter 5?
it is. Right.
Had those discussions.
No, this is the development part. I think this is chapter.
This is I thought it was part of
The
5.
review, the design review.
Yeah, it's basically if, it has a developer to, you either are going to initiate your development. And if you wait too long, then there's gonna be an expiration, and then your plan, you can resubmit your plan to the city and it could probably get approved if nothing in the code has changed. But it basically says that you are gonna have to make sure that that plan is also in keeping with whatever the new tree ordinances are, so
Right, it has
there
to
might,
abide by the new.
you might have to go back and
Right.
correct it or make some changes to make sure that you're in keeping with whatever, it could be, the tree ordinance could be more strict, it could be more relaxed, it could require different species, because again, as part of our urban forest plan, we also have to make sure that we don't, across the city, we're not exceeding, or at least the goal is to not exceed more than 10% of one species across the city. So if there is some kind of a disease outbreak, we're not losing all of our trees left and right. So that essentially is, we have to adjust that each year of like, okay, this year we're gonna plant 5 maples and 15 live oak, whatever. But the next year it could be, we're planting 5 oaks and 15 maples. So that number changes and varies.
So what we have changed is the requirements for a tree canopy coverage requirement for subdivisions. So the residential developments would be, I think it's like 20-25% tree canopy coverage to be maintained. Or then to be created if they can't, right? Or commercial projects, I think it's 30%. So we didn't put that in. We didn't though specify that they would have to do specific species or provide for diversity.
Okay.
That we did not. Of course, with every submittal of a site plan, they would have to, of course, show us a current tree assessment, an arborist report that comes along with their request. So that we didn't That's not it.
That was part of chapter 5. Maybe that's something that, I don't know if it's too late, if we can ask city council to add that part of it, because that way it.
But yeah, it's been, I mean, the revisions have received second hearing, so they're adopted. You can always amend those, I guess, right? But
So if you like.
Yeah, because it makes it easier if we know what is essentially getting planted out there, it makes it easier for us to maintain this forest management plan. And we can make, essentially it's immediate feedback of, hey, we've got too many oaks, we need to have more maples or more sycamores, or, we can basically have that be part of the recommendation where, it's like, oh, Ptac makes the recommendation that these are the trees that you should be.
or part of the review, actually, right?
Yeah.
If it comes for a review of the tree preservation or the landscape plan where they are, indicating the trees that they would maybe plant back or support. To have that weigh in, maybe,
Okay.
question mark.
Okay. All right.
I mean, those are just ideas, but I think,
Yeah,
those are good conversations to have between staff, how we administer applications for tree removal and support and, development design reviews, for major developments, that have an effect on, the tree canopy of beaver and so forth. So, yeah, I mean, should go hand in hand and
Well, I mean, to get to this, it's gotta be connected to everything.
It's a unified project right now. Well, do you guys have any other questions for Chris or?
No, just
I have a question, not necessarily for Chris. But was Ptac and asked to comment on chapters 5 and 7? Did they, the plan is trying to get in and y'all get to look at it?
we went over chapter 5. We did.
And y'all were,
Any recommendations?
Yeah, that was the chapter 5 was the one of the big changes was the tree protection zone. The TPZ. So.
Okay.
Is there how do we phrase this? Since you're in the planning department, do you know if any mitigation measures like root invigoration have started for these other trees that might be affected by the Charles Street drainage project? Not unsure.
I don't think they would be part of that at all. So.
Worth asking.
mhm.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks for attending, man.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Okay, everyone.
Think so? Is there any?
Yeah, they're for the money.
Right. We need to share.
the letter you were emailing, you were reading, was that, that's not the front, or